Thank you very much, Dr. Petras. I would like to thank the organizing committee and the company for inviting me to give this lecture here. And we are going to talk about the changing of the landscape in IgA nephropathy, the therapeutic landscape in IgA nephropathy. And we are going to analyze the value of targeted release budesonide. Pathogenic pathway in IgA begins with a deficient glycosylation of IgA molecule, as we all know. IgA is the predominant antibody subtype in external secretions and plays a very important role in mucosal immunity. In humans, IgA exists in two subclasses. IgA1, which is found in both mucosal surfaces and systemic circulation, and also IgA2, which is mostly limited to the mucosal surfaces. IgA1 contains a unique hinge region, which consists of 9 serine and threonine residues, and most of them are O-glycosylated. The variation of this glycosylation takes part in the biological work of the IgA immunoglobulin. Here is the structure of IgA. We have IgA as polymeric or dimeric molecules. Here is the dimeric molecule of IgA, and we can see that there are the two heavy chains, the J chain, which combines the two chains together, and the secretory component, which is unique just for secretory IgA molecule. Here again, we see the molecule of IgA. We can see the green and the yellow molecules, which are the heavy chains of IgA. The pink one, which is the J chain. The secretory component, it's the purple one. And all the others, the yellow, red, and purple, are the O-glycans. And we can see that the molecule is mostly covered by O-glycans, and just small parts are free, and they are active for immunity, for both innate and adaptive immunity. What happens in IgA nephropathy patients? The IgA molecule in these patients lacks of O-glycans, so it is a deficient glycosylated molecule. We don't think that this molecule is enough to make the IgA, to start the IgA nephropathy. We have 4 hits. We have to have 4 hits. The first one is for the production of IgA deficient glycosylated IgA molecules. The second one is the production of autoantibodies, which are against the galactose deficient IgA molecules. The third one is the formation of circulating immune complexes. And the fourth one and the last one is the deposition in glomeruli. So there are 2 questions arising here. The first question is, where this responsible IgA deficient glycosylated molecule produced? Where does it come from? We don't know really, but there is a lot of evidence that this molecule is produced by the Peyer's patches and mesangial lymph nodes. And we know that because there are enough increased serum levels of deficient glycosylated IgA, which are directed against pathogens. And the second question is that molecule pathogenic? We think they are pathogenic because they are increased in patients with IgA nephropathy. They have a positive correlation with the disease activity, and also there are a lot of deposition of IgA, deficient glycosylated IgA molecules in patients with IgA nephropathy, and they colocalize with C4d complement. So they are pathogenic, and we think that they are produced in Peyer's patches in the small intestine. The other thing is we found that deficient glycosylated IgA, when we put deficient glycosylated IgA in cell cultures with mesangial cells or epithelial tubular cells, they are starting proliferating, and they also start to produce cytokines such as TNF-alpha, TGF, and MCP1. And also, these cytokines are deposited in the glomeruli And also, this deposition is positively correlated with the degree of tubulointerstitial injury. So here we go from the pathogenesis, production of deficient glycosylated IgA with the 4-hit process, as we said, to histological lesions. And what are the histological lesions in IgA nephropathy? All these lesions here. We are all aware about the Oxford classification system, taking account the mesangial hyperplasia, endocapillary hyperplasia, segmental sclerosis, tubular atrophy, and crescent formation, the MEST-C score. And we have to think, when we start treating a patient with IgA nephropathy, where are we going to aim? Are we going to aim in the histology, which is this one, or are we going to aim in the pathogenesis of the disease? Of course, we always give supportive care in IgA nephropathy, and this supportive care consists of blood pressure control, AC inhibitors, ARB inhibitors, SGLT2 inhibitors, Spassertan, which is an endothelin inhibitor, which is just on ongoing studies, weight loss, of course, control of dyslipidemia. These are all prerequisites and should be applied in IgA nephropathy patients before any other treatment approach, but there are not enough. They just have a mechanical effect in the glomeruli, so it is not adequate to modulate, to regulate these immune pathways involved, and as we discussed. What about the steroids? Steroids are extensively studied in IgA nephropathy, starting from 1999, when we had the POSI trial with the POSI regime we all know, IV plus Peros steroids in large doses, about a 6-month course. And then we had the STOP IgA trial, again a POSI regime with immunosuppression. Then in 2017, we had the testing trial. We have to say here that there were large amounts of steroids given to patients, so we have lots of side effects. So we had to reduce, to stop the trial. And then some years ago, we have the retesting with smaller amounts of steroids. And then we've got the NefIgArd study we are going to discuss. So what about the amounts of steroids given in these trials? We said about POSI regime, which are IV, 3 grams of IV on months 1, 3, and 5, and all the other days Peros steroids. But on the testing study, we had very huge amounts of steroids, about 1 milligram per kilogram per day, almost for 2 months. We never had a patient who could tolerate such a huge dose of steroids for so long. And this was the reason why the investigators had to reduce the dose to half and also add antibiotic prophylaxis for pneumocystis carini. So there are 2 issues arising from the steroid treatment in IgA nephropathy. The first one is that steroids can reduce glomerular inflammation, but they do not act to the disease pathogenesis. Why is that? Because we didn't found any change in the deficient glycosylated IgA1 circulating levels, and because they have also a temporary beneficial effect, and we are all aware about the relapses in proteinuria in patients taking steroids, either in POSI regime or in MANO regime. And also, patients end up to need repeated steroid treatments. The other issue is the steroid toxicity, as we said, because of lots of infections, disease, diabetes mellitus, or some trials reported deaths due to sepsis. So we come again to the approach, to the treatment approach, And if we say we are not going to aim to the histology, but we are going to aim to the pathogenesis of the disease, we have two options: target the deficient glycosylated IgA immunoglobulin, either with targeted release budesonide or with B-cell and plasma cell targeted treatment. And what about Nefecon? Nefecon is designed to achieve a high-dose delivery of budesonide to the distal ileum, where Peyer's patches are highly concentrated. About 46% of Peyer's patches are located in the final 25 centimeters of distal ileum. And something that reduces the side effects is that phenomenon of 90% first pass effect. It means that it is reduced, so very small amounts of steroids are coming in the systemic circulation. And we can see here the 4 trials with Nefecon. The first one was a phase 2 pilot study, which was published in NDT in 2011. Here we had 16 patients with IgA nephropathy who received 16 milligrams of budesonide, and they found to have a reduced proteinuria some months later. The second one was the Nefigan study. Just a minute. The second one was the Nefigan 2B study, which was published in Lancet 2017. Here we had, this was a double-blind placebo-controlled trial. The inclusion criteria were eGFR more than 45 mL per minute, UPCR and urine proteinuria more than 0.75 grams per day. And of course, patients had to be treated with the most tolerated dose of AC inhibitors. This trial had about 153 patients. They were randomized to either 8 milligrams of budesonide, 16 milligrams of budesonide or placebo. And we can see the results here. The primary outcome, 9 months after initiating the treatment, they had a reduction in UPCR, in proteinuria. And the secondary outcomes, 12 months after starting treatment, the treatment was for 9 months, then stopped, 3 months free, and then patients were evaluated at 12 months. And they found that eGFR was stable. There was some increase in GFR in the beginning, and then this was stable. And then we come to these NefIgArd studies, phase A and phase 3B. Here we've got the NefIgArd study, phase 3A. The inclusion criteria were similar. We had to have a GFR from 35 to 90, and UPCR more than 0.8, or urine proteinuria more than 1 gram. And again, 199 patients, 100 were in placebo, 99 patients, 97 patients in 16 milligrams of budesonide. And we can see here the reduction of proteinuria during the 9 months of treatment, and then continued to reduce during 3 months of follow-up. When they did a subgroup analysis of patients with more than 1.5 grams of proteinuria and less than 1.5 grams of proteinuria, they found that there was a similar result in proteinuria levels, and also an increase in GFR, a beneficial effect in renal function, which was noticed during the 9 months treatment, and then stayed stable for the other 3 months. And again, the subgroup analysis for those who had more than 1.5 and less than 1.5 proteinuria were similar. And we come to the last study, which was just released in Lancet. This study evaluated the safety and efficacy of Nefecon over 2 years. The first one was for 1 year, and the second one was for 2 years. For the second one was designed just to give 9 months of treatment and then stop treatment and just follow up the patients for other 15 months. So we had the beneficial effect in GFR in the beginning and then remained stable. And again, in the subgroup analysis, we had this follow-up of patients with more than 1.5 and less than 1.5. We have to say here that patients with less 1.5 proteinuria seem to get better than the others, although the results, the difference was not significant. And here we can see that the qPCR also reduced and remained stable for the 15 months of treatment. So to summarize, Nefecon was well tolerated at 16 milligrams per day. It proved efficient to reduce proteinuria, improve renal function during the 9 months treatment, and stabilize results for the next 15 months of observation. And this is a poster just in the last ASN, which studied how the deficient glycosylated IgA levels changed during treatment. And we can see here that after treatment with Nefecon, deficient glycosylated IgA levels were reduced and remained reduced after stopping the treatment. And here it is a study we are going to do here as a multi-center study. We are going to evaluate the clinical outcome of patients and the laboratory outcome of the patients studying proteinuria and eGFR during treatment. And also we are going to study how the deficient glycosylated IgA levels change during treatment, and also do proteomics in the urine and the blood of these patients to see how the biomarkers changing during the treatment with budesonide. And these are some of our preliminary, very preliminary results. We can see here that follicular T cells were increased in a patient before starting budesonide. And here we've got 3 patients with almost 0 follicular Th17 cells in the serum. That means that indeed this drug is going to reduce follicular T cells. Follicular T cells are responsible to activate B cells and plasma cells and to produce the antibodies. So we think it is a very interesting result. So in conclusion, the gut-kidney axis is implicated in the pathogenesis and progression of IgA nephropathy. Increased levels of deficient glycosylated IgA1 lead to immune complex formation, deposition into the mesangium, and active and chronic lesions. Steroid treatment may reduce the inflammation, but it is not specific and followed by frequent relapses and very high levels of side effects. Budesonide aims to reduce production of deficient glycosylated IgA1. It is proved safe and efficient to reduce proteinuria and improve renal function. And it seems that it is time for us to not to aim to the histological damage and the result of the pathogenetic mechanism in IgA nephropathy, but to aim to the pathogenetic mechanisms and the increased production of deficient glycosylated IgA. And this is for me. Thank you.